What's up, my friend? Happy New Year's Eve. I'm Leon, the Paperback Maniac, closing out the year with my top 10 favorite vintage horror books read in 2018. I am very excited for this. It's been a lot of fun the last couple of days, going back and looking at all the books that I had read and reviewed this past year on the channel. I was a little surprised, actually, to find how few books I read in 2018. I think the total count came to something like 27 or 28. I thought I read more than that, but apparently not. But I am happy, actually, that I read such few, because it was already hard enough to make this list. It would have been a lot harder if I had read, say like 100 books. So, yeah, I'm going to take a sip here. Actually, I made sure my cup was within reaching distance this time. Jesus. All right, so I am going to start by doing a few honorable mentions. I couldn't help myself. These are not in any particular order. Someone had asked me earlier if I would be doing a bottom 5 as part of this video, and I thought about it. But ultimately, I decided that none of the books really that I read this year warrant that. I mean, of course, I enjoyed some books much more than others, and there were certain books that I immediately knew would make this list and others that I knew wouldn't be making the list. But I didn't really have any truly terrible reading experiences, luckily. For one thing, I didn't DNF a single book. I usually don't feel the need to do that because I'm fairly selective, before starting a book. I mean, I guess the worst thing you could say is that, a book just failed to engage me or was boring. And really, I mean, that's the only cardinal sin, in my opinion, especially when it comes to these kinds of books. Just don't bore me, I mean, so if I had to say my lesser favorite books of the year, I could talk about Blood Heritage by Sherry S. Tepper or Torments by Lisa Cantrell. Not that they're inherently bad books per se. In fact, on the contrary, I mean, they're both of those books I mentioned are very well written. I mean, actually probably better written than some of the books that made my list. But, they just didn't engage me as much. Of course, I could also talk a little shit about a book like Sandman by William W. Johnstone, which is weird because on paper, that seems like a book that would make my top 10 list. It appears to be everything that I want in a trashy, 80s horror paperback. But, I mean, with that one, it's just so ineptly executed and just such a rambling hot mess of a book. I just, but, at the same time, when I look back on it now, I look back fondly on it. I mean, you don't always remember books at the time of reading them and how much of a slog they were. You tend to remember just sometimes, scenes or, the feeling that it evoked in you. And so that one wasn't too bad. Or another one might be Vampire Cop by Vincent Courtney, the kind of genre hybrid buddy cop action horror book. Just a ridiculous and outrageous, book, not well written at all. However, when I think back on it, I think of it was charming and it was just really just uproarious and funny and I think I had a good time reading it, even though it wasn't the best book. But yeah. So now on to my honorable, or my runners up, I should say, honorable mentions, whatever. These are not in any particular order. But the first one is The Night Runners by Joe R. Lansdale. And this book was published by Tor. This edition came out in 1989. It was first published in limited edition hardcover by Dark Harvest Press in 1987. Yeah. This is just amazing early Lansdale. He's really hitting on all cylinders here. This book has got it all. It's got, action, gore, suspense, despicable yet fascinating characters. It's got a great Halloween vibe. Really, really one of my just favorite books, and really the only reason this didn't make the list is because it was a reread, and I wanted to just limit my top 10 list to books that were new to me in 2018. So, but I definitely want to mention it again because it's just such a fantastic novel and a great if you're into splatter punk, splatter genre, you really can't, it's hard to beat this one. Okay, the next runner-up here is I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. This book was first published by Warner and Company in 1954, way back in the day. This edition I'm holding is a reprint from SF Masterworks, came out in 1999. Some of you are probably thinking, like, what the hell is this not doing on your list? But, I mean, I loved this book. There's no doubt about it. It just, such an surprisingly emotional book, and just a wonderful, cogent meditation on sort of like isolation and loneliness and monotony, and, you know, just hugely influential as well. Influential, particularly, I think, in the, for the zombie, subgenre, even though it's ostensibly a vampire book. But just a great novel. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the reason this didn't make the list is because it's a little too popular and too classy. This channel is devoted to the more obscure and forgotten horror books of yesteryear, and so I wanted to save space on my list for those books, but had to mention it. It's a classic for a reason. Okay, one that is not too classy, for sure, is the next one I want to say, Mutants Amok, number 1, by Mark Grant, which was a pen name for the authors David Bischoff and Bruce King. This book, well, the whole series, actually, there are 5 of them in total, I believe. They all came out in 1991, published by Avon, and this was just a straight up blast to read. It was so fun, fast paced, gory. It's like a Saturday morning live action cartoon for gorehounds. I mean, if you always if you wished that there existed a book that felt like an R-rated version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but on steroids and with trauma levels of violence and gore, then this is the book for you. Just a really fun time. All right, next one I want to just mention is Out Are the Lights by Richard Lehman. Yes, I had to include Richard Lehman here. I know that there are people who don't like him or don't enjoy his stuff, but I gotta say I love Lehman. I will defend Lehman to the death, even when he can be hard to defend at times. But I mean, this book definitely flawed, as all of his books are. I mean, just ridiculous, graphic and gratuitous sex, just a discursive plot that seems to just ramble on like he's making it up as he goes along. But, the key things that I love about Lehman are present here. It's fast-paced, and it's fun. It's just a ridiculous, fun time. So, yeah, Lehman always is going to get a mention from me. I love his stuff. All right, and the last runner-up I want to mention today is The Breeze Horror by Candace Caponegro. Now, this book was published by Onyx in 1987, and you guys have heard me wax rhapsodic about Onyx before. This book exemplifies why I love them. It's just a really just kind of go for the throat, fun, illicit, engaging book that really had me riveted, and I really enjoyed it. I think, it's a shame that this author never published any other books. I would encourage people to check this one out if you like, especially if you like sort of late 80s sort of horror. And also, this book is one of the more kind of interesting books in that shop-worn subgenre of zombie fiction. In fact, this one and another book that is going to make an appearance here, they do it right. They do it, in an interesting and engaging way. Had me hooked the whole time. So those are my runners up. All right, now we're going to get into the top 10. So these I tried to rank them as best I could. So coming in at number 10, we've got Aftershock by Robert W. Walker. This book was published by St. Martin's Press in 1987, and just what a fun sci-fi horror creature feature. If you are a fan of the New World films that Roger Corman produced in the early to mid 80s, or if you're just a fan of Monster on the Loose mayhem, then you really owe it to yourself to seek out this book. Just a really fun, great pulpy time, good solid writing as well. I really enjoyed every minute of reading this book. It was a blast. That's Aftershock. All right, number 9. We're looking at The Feeding by Lee Clark. This book was published by Leisure in 1988. It's got just one of the best Leisure covers there. And this is one of those books that when I was looking at my ratings, I saw that I had rated this a 4. And I was like, how the hell did that happen? Because clearly this is a 5-star book for me. Now, I mean, is it 5 stars when it comes to logic and characterization? No. But is it just an amazing sort of over-the-top creature novel? Yes, it delivers on all counts there. Has just some really memorable scenes and set pieces. And yeah, I just loved it. This book lately over the last year or two has gotten a lot of love, and I can see why. It's definitely a crowd pleaser. Let's just put it that way. If you like this kind of thing. All right, coming in at number 8, we've got Down on the Farm by John Scher. This book was published by St. Martin's Press, first actually in hardcover in 1987, and then this paperback edition came out the following year, 1988. Just an awesome, awesome book. I mean, any novel that deals with an evil aura from outer space that tries to satiate its repressed sexual needs and bloodlust by possessing a rooster, yeah, well, enough said. I mean, this book, it has some really memorable scenes and really vivid writing, great descriptive writing here, and yeah, great 80s creature horror. Absolutely loved this book, Down on the Farm. All right, number 7 here. We've got The Sucking Pit by Guy N. Smith. This book was first published by New English Library in 1975. This is the lamer 1989 reprint from Grafton. And I mean, what can be said about The Sucking Pit? It's a pulp horror classic. I mean, this book is just so endearing, so entertaining. It's just got, I mean, just amazing gore, cheesy and titillating sex scenes, just an outrageous story. Yeah, it's the definition of a good time, in my opinion. Absolutely loved The Sucking Pit. Guy N. Smith is amazing. All right, coming in at number 6, we've got Joyride by Stephen Fry. Now, this book was published by Pinnacle in 1983. And, people are always, like, looking for those lost slashers, right? Like, they're always trying to find that gem, that undiscovered, like, slasher from the 80s. Well, this is it, folks. This is it. Yes, it's a book, not a film, but I guarantee you will have more fun reading this book than any crappy, like, lost slasher movie that you would find. Like, this book is just so entertaining, so well done. I mean, it's got a great summer setting. It's got an amazing villain with this guy Cleats, this disfigured cemetery caretaker. An amazing villain. Astounding just kills, like just gore scenes. Really well done too, well written. I mean, everything about it. It's just a really fun book. I mean, it's like an air kiss to my soul right here. I absolutely loved Joyride. Yeah, definitely check that out. Okay, now cracking into the top 5. Okay, coming in at number 5, we've got The Voice of the Night by Dean Koontz, writing as Brian Coffey here. This is the Signet paperback edition from 1981. This is just an utterly fantastic novel, just an amazing book that really delves into some really thought-provoking topics. You know, it deals with things like good and evil, but it also deals with sort of the pain and fear and isolation of adolescence, and it's just an amazing just coming-of-age novel. Just a great coming-of-age novel wrapped up in a horror thriller, and you know, you really care for the characters. It's got just some nail-biting suspense. Yeah, very, very well done. So Dean Koontz, you know, I resisted you for a while, but I don't know, I got to hand it to you. I think maybe you do deserve that mansion on Pelican Hill overlooking the Pacific because, yeah, well done, sir. Very, very nicely done there. All right. Coming in at number 4, we've got Dream House by Douglas Borden. This book was published by Onyx in 1989. And yeah, basically everything that I could want in an 80s supernatural horror novel is here. It's got just an engaging premise. It's got a fun, spooky setting and atmosphere. Just the most inventive and creative deaths, just incredible set pieces, brilliant gore, and very, very well written in this kind of cinematic style, just over the top as Onyx was wont to provide us. Absolutely love Dream House. Definitely one of my favorites of the year. Check it out if you like crazy supernatural horror from the 80s, because it's a great time. All right, into the top 3 now. Okay, coming in at number 3, we've got The Orpheus Process by Daniel Gower. Now, this book was published by Del Abyss in 1992. Now, this novel has a scene where a decomposing, reanimated monkey attacks a housewife with a boner. And the only way that she can sort of ward it off is first with an axe, and then with a chainsaw, and then lighting it on fire, and then ultimately having to crush it in the garage with her car. I mean, what else do I need to say, right? This novel is just, from top to bottom, a perfect book, in my opinion. I mean, aside from some occasionally wonky, tone-deaf writing, this was a perfect book. I enjoyed every minute of this thing. I loved it. I even loved the ending, which is rare. It just really delivered on all levels. I mean, definitely one of the most engrossing books that I read in 2018. And I do stress the word gross with that one, so... Orpheus Process. Speaking of gross, okay, coming in at number 2. Yes, we have Grim Memorials by R. Patrick Gates. Another Onyx book. This one was published in 1990. Now, I just reviewed this book on the channel, so I'm not going to go too into it. But I will say that just like the last Onyx title I talked about, Dream House, this one really knows how to deliver. It delivers on all counts. It just has some incredible scenes, set piece after set piece, just the sheer level of imagination and creativity. And, you know, both this novel and Dream House, while they seem to be very heavily influenced by splatter horror movies of the time, they both took great advantage of the novel format, the novel form, and just crank everything up to the nth degree. I mean, this is like supernatural horror, definitely cranked to the nth degree, and just delivering nonstop, over the top, just craziness, and just such a fun book to read. Such a fun fantasy horror novel. I mean, Eleanor Grimm, in my opinion, just a classic horror villain. I mean, this is a witch that when she smells children out in the woods outside her house, she says, fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of a little one. And then, like, she cackles at the thought of, like, delicious things to come. Just a fantastic character and a fantastic book. All right, and my number one favorite vintage horror book read in 2018 has got to go to What's Wrong with Valerie by Deborah Fowler. This book was published by Pocket, the only Pocket book on this list, and it came out in 1991. This book is just, as far as I'm concerned, a masterpiece. It is the only book that may have given me a psychosomatic illness as I was reading it. Because I remember when I was reading this book and reading about little Tamara's sickness, I remember feeling a piercing migraine at the time. Now, that could have been fortuitous and purely coincidental, or Miss Fowler could just be so fucking good that she actually gave me a physical reaction while reading her book due to just her skills. And I'd like to think the latter. This is just an amazing book, an amazing psychological sort of almost character study, but so well done, just written really well, with just nail-shredding suspense and just an engaging plot, a gripping plot that just keeps you hanging, and you just have to, compulsively read on and find out what happens. This, I have to say, my favorite book that I read this year. Utterly amazing. You guys everyone needs to track this book down and read it. What's Wrong with Valerie gets my highest recommendation. I mean, all of these books do, but this one, I'm placing at number one just because I feel like, more people need to be aware of this book. Really, really solid stuff. So yeah, check that one out as well. All right, guys, so that is it. That is my list of top 10 favorite vintage horror books that I read in 2018, plus some honorable mentions. And I guess I did end up throwing in some dishonorable mentions despite myself. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope you guys, have made some discoveries along the way this year. This is my 1-year anniversary as well on with this channel, and I've just been really happy. I'm so happy that I started to do this. I have a lot of fun with it. I recently hit 600 subscribers, which is crazy to me. I mean, that's so cool. Like it's awesome. I feel like the people that watch my videos are like the best people on YouTube, because you guys are horror fans and you're literate and you like to read. I mean, it's like the best of both worlds. It's like the two things that I love. So thanks to everyone who has, subscribed and, supported this channel this year and, watched the videos and liked them and commented on them and all that stuff. Really, really appreciate it. About a year ago, I had made a New Year's resolution. It was like one of my very first videos. I said, okay, my goal is to make a video, like a video review for every pulpy horror book that I read in 2018, and I did, and that's a pretty good feat for me, because I usually do not stick. I think it may be the first New Year's resolution in my life that I've ever actually seen through. So that is pretty cool. And you know what? Let's try it again for 2019. I'm having fun. I want to keep doing this. So keep a lookout. Stay tuned, and I hope guys keep watching. And I'm going to be doing more fun book reviews. I've got a whole bunch of fun books planned to read in the coming months. More fun, other videos. I've got like a collection video I hope to do in the next week or so. So yeah, I really enjoy it, and I hope that you guys do too. Thank you so much, guys. Everyone, Happy New Year's. I will see you in 2019. Peace out.